How's it? And welcome to this week's C# video where we're going to talk about string literals. My name's Gordon Beaming. Let's dive in. So first up, we're going to look at a basic string. So a basic string starts with a double quote, ends with a double quote. If you change this in a similar way to how you will with Microsoft SQL, you can see it breaks. And the reason for that is that a single quote in C# is for a character. So if we had a character like this, and we said A, then that would be fine because now that is a character. Whereas if we add a second one in there, that breaks because that now is no longer a character. And you can see with this very basic code, if we go and run this code, hello world is outputted. Now, if we wanted to add a double quote to this, so for example, over here, we wanted to go and add a double quote before that, you can see this gives a parsing error. And the reason for that is this double quote terminates the previous one. Yeah. So what we would need to do is escape it with a backslash. So when you escape this backslash, then everything works as you would expect. And now if we have to go and run this code again, you can see it prints hello double quote world as you would expect. And at this point, because backslash is used to escape characters, if we decided we wanted a backslash here, that would give an error because backslash D isn't a valid escape character. So we'd have to have a double backslash. So if we go and run this now, you'll see that we get the double backslash as expected. Now you might be wondering what happens if we have a path. So say on Windows, we had C drive, something like that, and code, my code. Well, you can see that wouldn't work, right? So let's look at our next type of string, which is a verbatim string. And all we have to do for that is put an @ before this. And as soon as we put the @, then our string is taken as a verbatim string. Now we still have the problem in this case that if we end this, that is going to break our string. But this time you can't go and quote this the way you would previously. So the way you would have to go and escape this time is you put a double quote, and then that will be interpreted as a single double quote. So if we go ahead and run this code, you can see that it goes C backslash, so we don't get the double backslash because we aren't escaping that. And then we have a single quote. And in this case, if we did have a double backslash, thinking that we needed to escape that backslash, then that's just going to print out 2 backslashes. One of the other benefits of verbatim strings is that they support multiple lines. So if we had to go here and move that on to the next line, you can see this code still works. And if we had to go and run this code, you'd see that we get a multi-line string. So obviously if we had to go and remove this, this would break not only because of our escaping, but you can see that this code is now no longer in this string color. And that means that obviously the single quote doesn't support the multiple lines. So what happens if we had a string that looked something like this, where we want to go, hi, name, strings are cool. Well, one of the things we could do is we could break this up into multiple string literals, maybe use something like the string builder that I showed in last week's video to make that a bit performant. But the feature that we're going to use here instead, which makes this a lot easier to read, is string interpolation. So all we have to do for that is add this $. And you can see as soon as we do that, the color of these curly brackets changes. And the reason for that is that the way the string interpolation works is uses these curly brackets to do parameters. Now in this case, we are actually escaping that name automatically. So if I have to go and run this, it's going to print out hi, and that's a single bracket because we're escaping the bracket. And the reason we have to escape the bracket if we want to use the bracket is because if we have a single one, you can see this color now changes because this is looking for a variable. So yeah, we can go and add name. So if we go and save this and run it again, it now says, hi Gordon, strings are really cool. And although when we hover over this type, you can see that it says that it's a string, the type that this actually is under the covers is a formatable string. and why you would sometimes want to take in a formatable string instead of a regular string into your method is because the formatable string gives you both the format as well as the arguments. So if you go here, you can see that if we run that dot argument count and we run this code, you can see that it prints out ha parameter 1 strings are really cool, and then it says we got an argument count of 1. And then if we have to go and look at what that argument is, we can see that that will then show us, obviously, that is Gordon. So next up, we have a feature that was introduced in C# 11, which is raw string literals. And as the name suggests, this makes it a lot easier for you to have raw string literals. So the exact string that you see is exactly what will be used. So for example, if I had in this scenario using the string interpolation with a verbatim string, if I dropped in some JSON, not only would I need to, in this case, go and escape all my or all my braces, then I also have to go and escape all my double quotes. And this could take a while. So normally what you do is then you put that into something like Notepad, and then you replace out all the things that you need to do, but that's quite tedious each time you need to do that. So instead, what we can do, if I just go and revert all that, is go and add 2 more quotes here. We can now take away the verbatim symbol at the start, and we add 2 more quotes at the end. Oh, and we also need to remove the dollar. So now you can see that this code looks normal, and if we run it, you can see that our JSON is printed out. Now at this stage you might be thinking, but wait a minute, Gordon, you've just shown me how to do string interpolation where I get to inject variables straight in here. Like, is this now taking a step back where I can't do that anymore? Well, no, that's not the case. Let me rewind back to where we had our very simple example before we dropped this JSON blob in. So with us now back to where we were, we'll go ahead and make those same changes. So we put the double quote there, the double quote there, and this code should now run. Let's just make sure. Okay, and as you can see, that is working as expected. So this double quote is being interpreted as we would expect. But now what happens in this case if we wanted to actually have a quote? Like, can we still go and escape this the same way? Well, no, we can't, because as soon as you put one of those, it's now expecting a variable. So if you wanted to have a single quote inside your raw string literal, what you'd do is you'd add $2. And now by you having $2 here, that means that if you want to use a parameter, you need to have double quotes. So this will allow us to have one of these and everything will work. So now we have the braces showing up. And if for some reason we wanted to have 6 braces next to each other, we could go all the way up here and up this to 7. And with us having 7 quotes, we need 7 closing brackets in order to drop in a parameter. So if we go and run this, you can see that that runs as we'd expect as well. Now, obviously, this is a very extreme example where we're doing probably something that you'd never need to do, but you can see that the raw string literal scales based off how you need to input your raw strings. Now, in the same way that you can scale your dollars to add more braces, if you needed to add in single quotes and say you needed 3 of those, instead of that ending your string, you could just simply go and add another one. So now we've got 4 double quotes, and 4 double quotes is the thing that terminates our string. So if we go ahead and run that, you'll see that those double quotes now show. And in the same way as we made the other one go silly up to 7, we can do the same thing here. So if we wanted to have 10 double quotes back to back to back, we can go and make 11 double quotes as our identifier for what starts and ends our string. And the last thing that's pretty cool that I want to mention about raw string literals is that the margin over here is determined by where the start of your double quotes is. So for example, if I wanted to go and format this code nicely and line it all up here, this wouldn't create a big string in the start. So if I had to go and run this, you can see that when it runs, it's back on the margin again, versus if I had to have the previous example with a verbatim string, and I go ahead and run this version, that same exact indentation will now get transferred into the string itself. So it's pretty cool that you can use the margin this way in order to help make your code more readable, because you can indent your string literals to where your methods are, or in this case where my variables are starting, so it can make the code look a little bit cleaner even if you do have big chunks of strings in your code. So there is one other string literal that I could talk about, but I think that's a topic for a different day because it's a much deeper dive, which is UTF-8 string literals. So in order to make one of those, you end up putting U8 at the end, and you can see that this now breaks. And the reason for that is that adding U8 to create a UTF-8 string literal creates a read-only span of byte versus the string type which you would otherwise get. So that's all I have to share with you today. I hope you learned something new. If you have any feedback for me, please put it down in the comments. If you have any other tips around string literals, also add those in the comments. Feel free to share this with any of your friends or colleagues. And until next time, cheers.